right, everybody. Welcome to Link Brown and Gray Matters. I'm Link Brown. Today we have with us a financial advisor who caters to the needs of professional athletes and entertainers, a regular commentator on CNN, CBS, Fox, and NBC TV, a public speaker, and the author of Secure the Bag, Create the Life You Desire by Managing Your Money Like You Mean It. And I like to call him a friend. Please help me welcome Rob Wilson. Rob,
Indeed.
how you doing today?
Oh, Link, it's real great to be here, man. And yeah, we go way back.
Yes, yes. So as I mentioned, we've known each other for about 25 years. And I have to say, again, we don't get a chance to talk often. But every time I see you and see what you're doing on whether it's on the news or I see something you're promoting, I actually crack a smile. And it's sometimes weird. I actually get a little bit emotional at times because I'm like, oh, wow, I remember Rob. I was like, wow, you were an engineering student at Pitt, and we met because you were managing the university cafeteria. I don't even remember the name of the of the place you're at.
So I started working in Highlander, and then I moved over to Moorwood.
Yes. Yeah. And then you were in the university center at one time too, or something like that. And I remember I said, that's three things I always knew about you at the time. I said, one is you were always smiling. You were just always just a really cool guy. Two, you always were one of the hardest workers. You know, when you were managing, like nothing ever went wrong. It wasn't like a crazy environment or something. Like things worked well. And third, and I didn't even realize it until years later, I was like, Rob knows everybody. He knows absolutely everybody. You know, I'd see you at a party every once in a while, or but we didn't never really saw each other and connected like that. But over the years, I'd hear people say, hey, you hear Rob is doing this and Rob is doing that. And I'm going, it really made sense to me because I felt like you were one of the people who really understood the power of relationships and just how success really wasn't all that complicated. It was just like really you were just able to connect with everybody. It was cool. So, but I want to just go back in time and just kind of understand more about you, Rob. Just to like, tell me about your family history. Like where'd you grow up? Brothers and sisters, your family dynamics, how did that work?
Yeah, so interesting, sort of growing up environment. I grew up in the Hill District in Pittsburgh, which is, historically one of the, underprivileged, sort of neighborhoods in Pittsburgh, although it's very close to downtown. So they're trying to improve the neighborhood now, but it's historically been one of those neighborhoods. And my mother and my father were never married. So I grew up in the house with my mother and my grandmother, although my father was definitely in my life, but we just didn't live together, and he and my mom weren't married, but he was definitely around and helped raise me and all of those sorts of things. But it was my mother and my grandmother who were, my primary caretakers. And so, it was, a lot of what I learned, a lot of what has been instilled in me definitely came from both of them. My grandmother was a nurse. So I would see her, just working really hard, going to the hospital, getting off late at night. And my mother actually, when I was fairly young, was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. And so one of the reasons why I ended up staying, in Pittsburgh for college, and I went to the University of Pittsburgh undergrad, is because, I needed to stay close in order to take care of my mother. And that's also one of the reasons why, I made sure as early as I could get a work permit, I went out and got a job, so that I could, help around the house and, not have to, be a burden on my family. I could, pay for my own things and so forth. So, having to take care of my mom really sort of made me become a little bit more mature than maybe I should have been, or normally would be at a very young age. I had a lot of responsibility. And so it was interesting, but I do think having those responsibilities, have helped me turn into a good adult. Hopefully, if everyone agrees with that's around me. But no, it's when you have that sort of responsibility thrust upon you, you get accustomed to taking control and taking charge and having, some weight on your shoulders. So yeah, it was pretty interesting growing up.
And how old were you when she was diagnosed with MS?
So I was probably in elementary school. So maybe, second or third grade, something of that nature. So
Okay.
however old you are around then,
Okay.
is when she got diagnosed, and it sort of just got progressively worse. So
Right.
she had fallen in a store, and then
Mm.
got diagnosed, and then she had a cane, and then eventually she had a walker, and then she was in a wheelchair, and then she ended up having to be in a nursing home for about 10 years before she passed.
Oh, sorry to hear. But man, that's I think about that. That's yeah. A lot of times we think it's a struggle, right? Like there's struggle, and it's sad that we have to go through it, but there's a lot of great ethic that actually comes out of it. That there's a lot of blessings that come out of the pain that you almost have to go through. And man, that's interesting. Yeah, because okay, so third grade. So when did it first like click to you that you needed to help, or you needed to do something to be a part of the solution for your family?
Well, I think from what I can remember, more so when I got into middle school, and I had to sort of help my mom more or less get around the house.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I was graduating from middle school, that my principal there actually, made mention to, that I go home every day, take care of my mom, and so on and so forth. So it was around middle school at some point where, she couldn't do as many things for herself. So, I had to help her around the house. So it was around then when, it started to get a little more serious.
Yeah. And wow, did you ever, so was there a click for you when you went from I want to be responsible to I want to be ambitious, right? Like not just I'm trying to help, but okay, there's something more that I want out of my life. Like what is there something that clicked for you?
Well, it was really before, my mom's condition deteriorated. When I was in elementary school, for one reason or another, they decided to put me in the gifted class, right? So you get to go to a different school once a week, and you can, be on the computer and play instruments and do all of these different things. And so, who knows why, I was selected, for that. I like to, sometimes it makes me a little sad because I think we start to predetermine who's going to be successful and who isn't at a really extremely young age like that. And
Right.
who's to say if some of my counterparts had those experiences, maybe their lives would have turned out differently. But for one reason or another, I was blessed to be able to do that. And I started to feel, even at that young age, that there was something expected of me. That, my teachers, my parents, but I definitely got it a lot at school, that I was expected to do well. I was expected to excel. I was expected to do great things. And whether they were lying to me or not, I absolutely ate it up. And so that was really a part of, one of the things that I developed, where, one of my greatest fears in life is not having lived up to my potential. Because I think people had just had high expectations for me at a really young age.
Yeah. My mom used to always tell me, I remember, first of all, like I would get to play on the on the calculator because I would finish my math early. So we got we got to play on the calculator
Right.
for some reason, right? But I remember my mom always telling me, she said, "Did you do your best?" Right? And it was always like this expectation that you want to that you need to be your best. You need to do your best. Not that you need to be the best, but just doing your best. And it was like something that almost gets like ingrained in your brain that you can, that there's an expectation and that you have the ability as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It certainly does get ingrained in you. Yep.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's cool. Yeah, so I love how your mom, your grandmother as well, you say were really influential on you. Do you have brothers and sisters, or are you?
Yeah. So I have two half sisters and a half brother. So they're my father's children. So
Yeah,
we didn't grow up together. And they're a little older than I am, but we have a relationship. But we didn't necessarily grow up in the same house and
gotcha.
that sort of thing.
Yeah, I was sort of asking from that standpoint, right? Like, so a lot of times, like I'm the youngest child, so I think there's a lot of benefits to being the youngest child. There's a lot of benefits to sometimes even when you're an only child. There's some detriments too, obviously, but there's some benefits when you can kind of see older people, like the way they move and the way they act, to kind of help you put
Yeah.
your kind of condition your brain on terms of like how to think and how the world works.
Yeah, I'm my mom's only child, and so I really sort of had a more of an only child experience,
Mm-hmm.
growing up. So I agree with you 100%. I would just end up in my room, just sort of, messing around on a computer or doing different things up there. But yeah, when you don't have any siblings to fight with, then you turn your eyes to, sort of what your parents are doing, and you start to, mimic some of the ways that they operate.
Yeah, that's cool. So let's fast forward. So you decided to stay in Pittsburgh, help your mom. You majored in industrial engineering, right?
Yep.
At Pitt, for your undergrad. So tell me, so why industrial engineering?
So when I was real young, I used to think that I wanted to be an architect. That was
Mm-hmm.
sort of one of the first things that I wanted to be. But then I realized that I didn't think that I could draw that well. So I was like, I don't know if that's necessarily the thing for me. But I've always sort of been into computers. I've always sort of been, technically inclined. And so I wanted to pursue something technical, because that's where my interest lie. I was good at math, those sorts of things. But then also, I wanted to pursue something where I could, make a decent income. I wanted to pursue something where I was going to learn some actual skills and I could go get a good job. And so
Yeah.
I did that research and I looked to say, okay, what majors are, turning
Mm-hmm.
out the highest paid graduates. And that was a big reasoning, and why I selected engineering as well.
So funny. I hear there's so many parallels. I'm the same. I said, okay, who makes the most money? Um,
There we go. Done. There's your answer.
so
Yeah.
exactly. But then, so I don't. What do you think about the whole idea of like practicality in terms of degrees? There's so many like degrees out there. Again, there's universities who offer all these different things. I'm a practical guy. I keep thinking like, man, we should just have practical degrees. I live here in Europe. In Europe, like for instance, just take Germany or I live in Switzerland. You really can't get I'll call it a flowery degree, right? It has to have some utility for society. I don't know what you think about that, or if you mentor kids or people, like what do you think?
Oh, first of all, yeah, I mentor kids, and then I also just, when I open up my practice to work with some younger folks, or just, you know, let people contact me for coaching calls, so on and so forth. There's so many people out here struggling because they have this ridiculous student loan debt that they've
Mm-hmm.
gotten underneath, and a big part of it is because, listen, I think it should be the same way in the United States. Listen, look, I love both of my schools, okay? And I learned a lot there. But I do think that they're both a part of this system where it's almost a little criminal what they're doing to young people who have no idea what the concept of money is and don't truly understand what situation they're putting themselves in. I mean, they're making one of the largest financial decisions that they're ever going to make when they're 16 or 17 or 18. And, you're charging them, 100,000, 150, 200, 250,000 for an English degree.
Exactly.
It just doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And it shouldn't be a thing, in my opinion.
I don't know if you've ever thought through this or if you've heard this argument before, but the concept of getting rid of federally subsidized school loans, and basically making it where letting, quote unquote, the market decide. So the idea would work like this, like for an engineering class, you would pay 2 or 3 times the amount that you would pay for an English class or for a history class, because you can use the engineering degree to go make more money or to create something. But for something that's an elective or something that doesn't necessarily give you the same return, you would actually pay less, and it'll basically be based by the class. I don't know if you've ever heard that argument before. If you've ever,
I haven't heard that argument. I'm not sure I agree with that, because I think just inherently you're going to have people who have lower incomes are going to start to not be able to, access those classes. So, if we were going to have that argument, I'd almost like it to be opposite, right? Let's let the technical, engineering, computer science, medicine, those sort of things, make it more accessible and make the English degree a little bit more expensive. So you really got to think pretty hard.
Okay.
Should I really go and pay this money for this class? Now, I don't think that that'll ever happen.
No.
But I wouldn't want to see engineering, computer science, those sort of things just start to get inaccessible by people who don't necessarily come from a high income family.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. Yeah, that's okay. So that's an interesting argument. Okay. Yeah, because part of it's accessibility and part of it is utility. Right. So you need you need to understand like where things sit. I don't know. But I agree with you completely that in terms of the types of degrees we're able to get, the types of debt that people are paying. I heard a guy the other day say that that one of his goals in life was paying off his student loans. I said, that's not a goal.
It shouldn't.
That shouldn't be a goal. No. There's no way that should be a goal in life. I mean, you should be able to pay. You should pay them off. But where that is burden on people instead of them pursuing their passions and actually creating value for the world, like I think it's really sad.
Well, I think we're actually in a unique period in the history of education and things, because the pandemic has, I think, really exposed the entire industry.
Yep.
And folks are starting to realize now that, wait a minute, the information is basically free.
Right.
Information is free in 2020.
Yep.
So what you're paying for is the polo logo on the shirt. I mean, that's what you're paying. You're paying sort of a glorified country club membership, and with the information sort of thrown in. And so, I think where education is probably going to have to get to, because I think that this is going to most likely change education forever, when people are saying, wait a minute, I'm sitting here, I'm in my own house, I'm on Zoom, I'm getting the information in the same way. I know there are some proponents who say, oh, well, this distance learning isn't the same as being in there with the professor. Listen, my first chemistry class at the University of Pittsburgh, there were about 200 people in there in this huge room where I used to just sit at the top. I'm sure I probably went late a number of times, so I would just slide in, sit all the way at the top. That professor didn't know I was there, but I got the lecture. I had the book. I took the notes. I took the exam. I passed the class.
Yep.
That doesn't seem all that different to me than being able to see a lecture over Zoom. As a matter of fact, I wish they had videotaped lectures and so forth when I was going to college, so I could go back, I could refer to it. I didn't have to worry about missing a sentence or a few words or not understanding how they broke down the problem. I wish they did that. So I think it's exposed the whole entire industry where I think they were going to have to take more responsibility for actually producing employees that, or not necessarily employees, but students who can go and live the lifestyle and have the life that they want to live, versus just saying, here, we gave you some information. It's up to you. If it works for you, if it doesn't, it's not on us. I think that whole model is going to have to change.
Yeah, man, I'm 100% with you. I'm 100% with you. I mean, I even think about, I would get the notes from the person who took the class the year before, and then I go to class and I just either recopy or study them or whatever. And you go, wait, this is the same exact thing as being able to watch a video. It's the same exact thing as being able to understand what someone else already knows. And again, I'm with you. I learned so many things today over the internet. The one thing you'll miss is the network, right? I wouldn't meet you if I hadn't gone. If I hadn't gone.
Absolutely.
To school,
no,
right?
there's definite benefits to we're social people, and that's something you can't easily replicate online. I get that 100%. Right. But is it worth 250? Exactly. You could take some of that money and go join an actual country club, exactly, and then build those relationships. So yeah, I think there's more than one way to skin that cat.
That's cool. That's cool. I'm with you 100%. We'll talk more about it later. All right. So you're an engineering student. You graduate in engineering. Did you work? Obviously, you worked because I met you while you were working. So, what types of jobs did you have, in college, and then how did you transition to that?
So again, I mentioned, the very moment that I could work, I went and got a job, a work permit, and I went and got a job. And so my first real job was working at Carnegie Mellon in the dining service. So my girlfriend at the time in high school, her mother worked at Carnegie Mellon in some capacity. I can't remember. And so she had started working there in dining service. And then, so she helped me get a job as well. So I started working there when I was, I think in 10th grade. 10th or 11th grade. So I worked there 2 years while I was in high school. And then when I graduated and went to Pitt, I just continued and stayed on working there.
Okay. Now I'm starting to put some pieces together. I'm going, wow, it's how did I just meet this guy? And he's all over the place. He just, it's that's cool. Okay. So you actually had a little bit of a connection already that kind of got you.
I did because I was working there while I was in high school. And then because I had an ID because I worked there. So I would go and play basketball and, hang down there and stuff. So yeah, I had a good experience early on at the school.
Gotcha. All right. So then you get your, so other than working there, did you work any place else while you were during your undergrad, or is that mainly?
Well, so I also used to DJ pretty heavy as well. So while I was at Pitt, I ended up getting involved in the campus radio station. So I had a radio show for, the 4 or 5 years that I was there. And then the guys that I befriended when I became a DJ on a radio station, one of them was one of the biggest DJs in the city. And he and I became very close. I had actually met him prior to coming to Pitt, and then we became very close at Pitt. He taught me how to DJ, and then I started doing some of the parties and things as well. So doing parties helped bring in some extra income. So between that and doing the dining service, I made sure I had a couple dollars in my pocket.
Okay, so yeah, so I know you interviewed everybody from Eminem, Fife, Public Enemy.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I got a chance to meet some cool folks. What, again, my guy who was a DJ and then being on the radio station, he also got me involved with this local hip hop show that was called Underground Hip Hop Video Magazine. It's a weekly show, and it was a really cool show because they would the producer at the show, he would get like the explicit versions of videos, and this is before YouTube and all of that kind of stuff where you couldn't see that stuff, and it wouldn't be on MTV. So he would get the explicit versions of videos and so forth, and that would be one of the only places that you could find that stuff. So we had a really cool show, and he just got really connected in the industry. So anytime people would come through the city to do a show, we would normally get an interview. So yeah, I interviewed Eminem before he, really, really blew up right when his first album came out. I interviewed Fight from a Tribe Called Quest, Exhibit. I actually had Chuck D on my radio show at Pitt. I interviewed Jesse Powell, who was an R&B singer.
Yeah, R&B guy. Yep.
I didn't interview them, but I did meet Destiny's Child when they were in town for a show where I was backstage and have a good picture with them. So that was a pretty cool experience. So yeah, it's funny because now I actually work with pro athletes and entertainers in a different capacity, but so it's funny coming from, having been around them in that capacity. I think it sort of, it trained me to be in this type of career where it's like, I'm not starstruck,
yeah, exactly.
anymore. I realize that they're just, people just like we are. And then I think that's one way that allows me to connect with and work with those folks on a professional level, because I'm not, sort of in awe, just because they're on TV.
I was going to ask you that question because about like how it affected you to meet people like that. I have good and bad stories about like meeting famous people, and when one where it was, I'll call it bad because it was starstruck and it was like, you don't remember how to act. Right? You don't remember, like, it's really basic things that your mama taught you that like that people connect to. You don't have to be fake. You don't have to put on any air. You just need to be you. And but anyway, like how did I was going to ask you, but you kind of answered it. One thing that's actually really interesting to me is you said your friend at the DJ, or who was a DJ, taught you how to DJ. How did that come about? Like, I'm always big on like, I think there's so many people who don't even know the impact that they have on us. And how they're a stepping stone to help us go to another place. Right. And, it's like, wow, this person just takes you under their wing and you don't even know what's going on at the time, but they're helping you. Like, how did that like kind of relationship come about, and how did that come about for you?
Yeah, I think, when I started to work at the radio station and he had already, he had been there, for a few years already, I would just hang around, so I ended up getting a show. I think I was on from 5 to 7. I think there might've been somebody in between us, and then he would come on like at 9 o'clock. And so I would just hang around. Cause again, he was like a personality in the city. He would also have artists, coming through his show. So it was cool to hang around. And so when he would do the parties, he was the big DJ in the city. So he would do the campus parties at Pitt and, all the other colleges in the city. And so he would say, hey, you want to come to the party with me? I would help carry the turntables and help carry some crates. And then, but I love music so much that I kind of wanted to learn. So he would, let me mess around on the turntables a little bit, show me a couple things and say, here's how you do this trick or what have you. And then I remember what would happen is that he would and it was a couple other guys too. So while we were setting up, and at the beginning of the party, nobody wants to show there when it first, opens. So there's nobody there when the party starts. So he's like, you guys can go ahead and mess around, while at the beginning of the party. And then when people start to show up, I'll get on. So, so he would start to let us mess around a little bit. And I remember the first time that I actually, blended 2 songs together, in an actual party when some people were walking in. I was like, oh, you know what? This is pretty cool. So, So from that point, I was like, hey man, I really want to learn how to do this. So sometimes after his show was over, we would just hang out in the radio station, and he would work with me and teach me how to, how to do the technical stuff, how to blend a record, how to scratch, how to do these other things. But then it was really just from hanging around him that you understood really how to work a party.
Yeah.
How to make the crowd do what you want them to do, how to keep them going, how to bring them down a little bit when it's time to go. And so the art, there's an art actually to being a DJ in addition to the technical part of it that I was able to get to just by being around.
That's cool. And I can see some of that in your work today. You're good at the messaging. Like you know how to work it. It's cool.
There are a lot of parallels. I 100, it's interesting that you say that. I 100% believe that I wouldn't necessarily be able to do the things that I'm doing now had I not really been into music, had I not had my own radio show, had I not DJ'd, and had I not been on, underground hip hop. Those experiences, which, sort of don't really have anything to do with my formal education, are really, really important parts of who I've sort of, developed to be. I don't know that I would be comfortable being on TV and, going on CNN and doing all these other sorts of things had I not had those experiences in college.
Man, that's cool. That's amazing. That's amazing. So I wanted to talk quickly about the transition. So you're an industrial engineering degree. How do you go from, I'm always big on transitions, right? Like there's always a time where you have to realize that you want to do something else, but how did you go from industrial engineer to MBA, Carnegie Mellon financial advisor? Like how did that transition happen?
Yeah, a lot of people ask me that, and it's not as crazy as I think maybe it initially sounds. So first of all, like industrial engineering is really a good mix of business and technology. Yep. And so it's not, I didn't come from being a chemical engineer or being a civil engineer, which is, really, hardcore sort of getting in the weeds.
But by the way, I'm a chemical engineer by degree.
Sure.
Don't do any of it anymore. But by degree, chemical engineer.
Go. So the transition for me wasn't as out of the ordinary, right? So when I finished at Pitt, I went to go work for Deloitte Consulting, which is one of the largest, professional services firms in the world. And, I did IT consulting, but, you're really also there sort of consulting on the business as well. Certainly we were primarily concerned with the systems and so forth, but you're advising them on their business. And I've also always been entrepreneurial. And so if we go back to when I was sort of in middle school, I wanted to have, I remember very vividly, I think one of the first things that I really wanted to buy myself is that I wanted to go get, and I'm going to super date myself here, but I wanted to go get the Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince record that came out at the time. So I think it was Parents Just Don't Understand. Yeah. So I wanted to get that. I think my mom didn't necessarily want to buy it for me for one reason or another. So I started a store outside of our house, in our house, where I would sell pizza and French fries and popcorn and ices and stuff like that, because we lived sort of right up the street from the pool in our neighborhood. So everybody kind of had to walk past my house to get to the pool. So I put a little sign out on our porch, said, hey, I got pizza for 75 cents or whatever it was. And, I started making money that way. So I've always been sort of entrepreneurial in one way or another. When I was in college, I start seeing these signs around campus for this thing called University Painters, where this company offered business opportunities to college students for the summer where they could own and operate their own home painting business. So I signed up for that and did that one summer. So I've always sort of wanted to have my own thing and be in control of my own destiny. So I've been, pretty entrepreneurial. So one of the reasons why I decided to go back to school was while I loved Deloitte, it was a great company. I traveled a lot. I got a lot of frequent flyer miles and hotel points, and they paid me well. I just didn't like the aspect of having to wait for someone else to decide that they were ready for me to make more money.
Yes.
or to be promoted. I just didn't like that. So I wanted to be in a position where if I wanted to make more money, then I need to go out and find more clients. And I was okay with that. So I decided, well, let me take a step back. I'm getting a little ahead of myself. My original feeling for going back was I didn't want to be pigeonholed as the techie guy forever. Because what I did see in the firm was that the folks that were out, really being successful, making money, they weren't sort of the tech heads, right? They were folks that could go out, develop business, build relationships, that sort of thing. And I was like, that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
So I said, let me go get my MBA, augment that skill set. Boom, I'll come back to Deloitte. I'll get on partner track. There you go. But then it was when I got into business school and sort of got more exposed to how things really work. In America in particular, I mean, our economic system in the United States is called capitalism. It's not called employeeism. And so the folks who are successful understand capital. They understand how to obtain capital, develop it, grow it, protect it, those sorts of things. And so I started looking for other opportunities. Now, I thought that I might have that story where you go back to business school and, you start this tech company and you leave and, that sort of thing. I didn't come up with Instagram while I was in business school, so that didn't happen for me. But there was a woman who came to campus to speak, and she was a financial advisor. She worked at Merrill Lynch. She had some athletes that she worked with, and I thought, wow, I think that's an interesting career path for me, because that would sort of be the best of both worlds for me. I could still be analytical and technical and use that side of my brain because I'd be working in the markets. But I was never the pocket protector kind of engineer. I wanted to be out building business, speaking, getting relationships, that sort of thing. And I could do that because it was a client service-based relationship. So I interned with her while I was in business school, then end up interviewing with a bunch of firms, and then got hired at Smith Barney with my first job out of business school. So, I still say that I'm an engineer that happens to be, working in finance, because I do think that that's sort of the core of who I am: analytical, technical, but, I've got this other creative side and relationship building part of my brain that I like to use as well.
Yeah. And you're great at it, by the way. Like I said, I told you, like, my memory of Rob in college is connect with everybody. Like, I just I'm going, how the heck does he know everybody? Like, you're just great with people. So obviously it just it translates really well.
I appreciate you saying that.
No problem. All right. So I had a question about niching down. So you focus mainly on entertainers, athletes. I know you do some professionals as well. Like, how did you even figure out how to concentrate or who to concentrate on? How did you even figure out like how to place yourself? Because I mean, there's a gazillion financial advisors in the world, but how did you come to be able to niche down to be as successful as you are now?
That's a really good question, because, I don't come from a wealthy family. So when you start at a financial firm like that, yeah, they train you, but when you really start, they give you a desk and a phone, and then they say, get to work. And so, I didn't have a rich uncle or somebody that I could just call up and say, hey, open up an account with me.
Mm-hmm.
So I started out just cold calling. They give you a list. You just hop on the phone and start calling people and hope that they're not too freaked out to talk to you about their money to a stranger over the phone, which was brutal, by the way. It's tough getting hung up on, 95 times a day. But I will say it did build me up a thick skin.
Yep.
While doing that. I don't know. I hope they don't make people still cold call today, because I don't know if that, would work. But, it did help build up a thick skin and help me learn how to deal with objections and so on and so forth. So in that respect, I did get something out of it. But the only thing that sort of made sense to me, because I'm saying to myself, okay, how do I go find wealthy people that will want to hire me as a client?
Right.
I don't know who these. I don't know where they are. I don't, if I walk in a room, I don't know who has a big portfolio or who doesn't. I wasn't sure. The only thing that made sense to me was, wait a minute. So I know that there are all these young people who are athletes who are turning pro, coming into all this money. 9 times out of 10, they don't come from money, so they don't understand it, but they do have this need. And they get taken advantage of so that they could use somebody that was trustworthy, that wouldn't want to, that would have their best interest at heart and wouldn't want to just take them for everything that they had. And so for me, although it was difficult to break into that sort of industry, because those people weren't the easiest folks to get to, is the thing that made most sense to me, because I could identify those people. I knew who I could turn on the TV and know who they were.
Right.
And then there was also a process where they go in college, they play in college, they stand out, there's a draft, and then they go and play pro. So I could try to integrate myself into that process, where if I was trying to go try to work with, Joe Blow, CEO, it's just not as a clear-cut defined way to get into that environment. Plus, a lot of the athletes are young, they're Black, they come from the same places that I, come from. I felt like we could speak the same language and so build a rapport that way. But then also, I had an engineering degree and an MBA from Carnegie Mellon. I felt like I had the credentials that would allow me to go in to any of those rooms with confidence. So it made sense because I feel like I could identify them. And then I didn't know how I was going to do it, but I said, okay, I think that's where I'm going to focus my efforts. So while I kept cold calling, I tried to build this on the side. And I happened to have a good friend of mine from high school who ended up playing in the NFL. So I reached out to him. I asked him, hey, just tell me everything you know. I'm not asking you to necessarily introduce me to anybody, but just tell me everything you know. What are the challenges? What were you surprised about? What's difficult? How'd you find your financial guy? How'd you find your agent? Just tell me everything you know. My nephew played college basketball, so he was sort of connected in that arena. And so I just started to make my way through. I mean, one thing that they told me in training is that if it's not impossible, it's inevitable. And so if you keep just plugging away at it, eventually you'll get there. So I kept plugging away at it. Eventually I met someone and, ended up landing a client or two here. What did accelerate things for me is that when I started to make some headway in working with athletes, and look, God works in mysterious ways. There happened to be a guy in my office who was already doing this business in a major way. I mean, just worked with a bunch of guys, really famous players and so forth. But he would kind of keep to himself, was a little bit standoffish. But my manager said, hey, you're working with athletes. He's already doing this. Maybe you guys should partner up. And so we ended up building a relationship and working together at the firm. And then in 2008, right as the financial crisis started to take shape, he said, hey, I'm thinking about getting out of here. Do you want to go, start our own thing? And it wasn't the most comfortable thing to do, to leave, a big firm right in the middle of a financial crisis. But, sometimes you have to, bet on yourself and take a risk if you want the bigger reward. And so I said, I'll take a shot. We left in January of 2009, right in the middle of the financial crisis. Pretty much all of the clients that we worked with came with us. So what happened for me is that I went from, saying, oh, I work with 3 or 4 athletes, to saying we work with 30 guys, So now that's a different conversation when you go to a potential client and say, hey, I work with this person and that person, because now we're partnered up. And so that really accelerated my trajectory, got me into a whole, different network. He and I worked together for 5 years, and then our relationship sort of, ran its course. And then I went solo in 2014 and have been running my own shop ever since. But what did really take me to the next level was when, we partnered up and worked together for a while.
It's like you said, God works in mysterious ways. So like, I think the first thing that came to my mind when you said financial crisis hits, which was a tough, even now, it's a tough time.
Sure.
Right? So you go, wait a second. You think about the amount of work your parents, your mom put into your grandmother. You think about the struggle you have to go through where, seeing her condition, and you go, man, okay, I got through that. I worked hard. I got through it. I got through, having to work my way through college. I got through, learning how to be a DJ. I got through all these different things. And like, you just go, it's a tough time. You think, but you can go back to those moments and say, all right, I got it. like it's gonna work, right? It's not just you just so happen that this guy to happen to say, hey, you want to partner together. I mean, you build a relationship, which you've been doing for years. You've been through struggle. You've succeeded through the struggle, and eventually something came and it starts to pop for you. So I mean, I love like seeing like how things like always start to come together for people. And that's, like I said, it's cool. It's cool.
It's funny how you see the pieces start to come together. And it's interesting hearing you process that, because I never maybe connected all of those dots and really thought about it that way. But you're right. All those experiences, and a lot of people talk about grit in things now. Those experiences definitely help you get through things. And that's why I understand when people are saying, listen, don't just give everybody a participation trophy, right? You got to lose a couple games, and understand that it's okay, that success is not the absence of failure.
Right.
As a matter of fact, I mean, it is difficult to learn that. You're a kid, you lose a game, you're going to cry a little bit, it's fine. But when it is difficult to get that feeling that, oh, I don't have to be perfect.
Yeah.
Even the people that I admire, have failed before, and it's okay. The what matters most is what you do next.
Yep.
It's hard to get that lesson. But I will say this one thing about my mom, again, as I saw, her condition, deteriorated over time, and she was in a nursing home for 2 years. But I mean, my goodness, she did more for me in my life from a hospital bed in a nursing home than a lot of people's parents who have done for them, and they can walk on their own 2 feet.
Yep.
And so to see her sort of be able to, keep up her good spirits and still be so supportive of me, and just, still be happy, and still, and enjoy life as much as she could, even in that situation, I think, contributed to a lot of that as well.
Yeah, man, that's beautiful. I was going to tell you later, but I'm like, she left a good legacy. No, I'll tell you, she did well. So
thank you.
Be proud. Before we go, I know we don't have a lot of time, but I want to definitely transition because to your book. I want to make sure that people know about your book, Secure the Bag, Create the Life You Desire by Managing Your Money Like You Mean It. As we started talking, I think about a lot of people as they grow, as they grow, again, we start to advance in our careers. We start to, maybe we didn't come from money and we start to make some more, or maybe we had money and we didn't really understand the value of how to make it. What would you say, tell me, what are like the key to this book that would really help somebody move their lives forward?
Well, one of the quotes that I have right on the back cover of the book, and that I say all the time, is that if you're not intentionally trying to get wealthy, you'll likely end up accidentally poor. And that's really one of the reasons why I decided to write the book, because I see people just sort of going through life sort of like a zombie, almost like The Walking Dead, right? Just sort of going through the motions, no intention, no desire, no passion, no direction. And then people sort of, they look back and they go, well, I'm 50, I'm not where I want to be. Well, again, not to be harsh on folks, but a lot of the reasons why you're not where you want to be is because you never really made a decision where you wanted to be. You never accepted that decision. You never took a step back from everything to say, okay, where am I now? Where do I want to be? What steps do I need to do between now and then? A lot of people just think, oh, it will work out somehow. It won't just work out.
Yeah.
It doesn't just happen for you. And so I really wanted the people, and that's why the tagline is manage your money like you mean it, not like it's a side thing. It's important. And, and it's not just about money. It's about success. It's about living the type of life that you want to live on your own terms. And I think having the resources to do that is very important. And so I wanted the people to have some intention around how they're building their financial life so that they can create the life that they want to live, and then give them the process, give them the steps. Once they make the decision, okay, yes, I want to get serious about it, but no one ever talked to me about money. What do I do? I wanted to help give them that blueprint.
Yeah. The one thing that came to my mind, as I said, we make a lot of intention about where we want to be in terms of our titles, maybe in terms of where we want to live, in terms of like the amount of praise or respect that people give us. But you're right, something as private as money, because no one knows how much you have left until you're too old to do anything about it. It's something that needs attention.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Because the longer you have for your money to make money for you, or to build your career or do the things that you really want to do, then the better off that you're going to be in the long run. And so that's because if I take a look back at, I think, and I still have a lot more work to do, but what has allowed me to maybe get up to this point is because I made a decision. I knew the things that I wanted. I mean, the reason that I got on TV is that I was at Smith Barney, and I said the same thing to myself that you said to me earlier. There are a gajillion other financial advisors out there. So how am I going to differentiate myself? And I do remember, one time, right sort of very close to after my mother had passed away. And I remember driving around in the car one day, and I'm thinking about my business, my practice, my life. Where am I going? How am I going to do this? And Kanye's song at the time, "The Good Life," came on. And there's a part in the song where he goes, "I'ma get on this TV, mama. I'ma put this down." And I remember hearing that line in the song, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna get on this TV. I had done underground hip hop. I'd been a DJ, all these sorts of things. I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna get on this TV. I'm a communicator. I'm not a pocket protector engineer. Let me use that to my advantage. So I'm gonna get on this TV. Again, no clue how I'm gonna do it, but I made the decision that day when I was in the car. So you fast forward a little bit. It's 2008. It's the financial crisis. A friend of mine had invited me to a party because he had won an Emmy for a project he worked on. Now, I do remember this vividly as well. I went home after work. It was one of those days I did not want to be bothered with anybody. I'm sure we all have those kind of days. But then I said two things to myself. One, I signed up for this life. I know I need to be out there meeting people. I got to be at events. I got to go be social. I got to try to build my business. So that's the first thing. Number two, I know that if I was having a party because I won an Emmy for something, I would want people to come. So I put my suit back on. I went down to the party. So then I get there, and then I see across the room, I see one of the reporters from the local CBS affiliate. And so luck is when preparation meets opportunity, right? I'm lucky that I put my suit on. I went back to this party, and I'm lucky that this person showed up there. So I see her across the room and make a beeline. Hey, she happened to have her own, in addition to being a reporter, she had her own show. So I said, hey, do you need somebody to come on and talk about the financial crisis? She was a little lukewarm to it, but I wore her down over the next couple of weeks, I think, over email. And so she ended up having me on her show. Right after I did the show, her producer came out and said, hey, we need somebody to come in and fill in on this show that we're filming the day after Thanksgiving, but it's going to air the day after Christmas. Can you come fill in for us? I said, sure, I'll do that. And then after I filled in for that, she said, hey, do you want to do this on a weekly basis? I said, you're damn right. I want to do it on a weekly basis. And so in 2009, I started a weekly segment on a CBS affiliate in Pittsburgh. And then, fast forward, I did that show for about 9 years. And it's funny because the actual last time, I didn't plan it this way, but the last time I was on that particular show was the day that I released my book. So I did the show. I had a big speaking engagement in Pittsburgh that day, but now I'm on, NBC, Fox, and Philly. I've been on CNN multiple times, and I continue to use that to build my business. Long-winded way to say a lot of the things that the reason that I think I've been able to have whatever success I've had at this point is because I've been intentional about it. I've made a decision. I stopped being bashful about it. I'm happy to tell everybody that I see what my goals are. Like if you ask me what's my goal now, look, I'm working on being the next sort of Susie Orman, Dave Ramsey. I mean, real financial, personality, so on and so forth. So that's the next step. I'm not afraid or embarrassed to say it. Some people may laugh, maybe they won't. But I've made the decision, and I think it's helped me out this far. So I wrote the book. I wanted people to be intentional. Hopefully it helps.
And be intentional every part of your life. I love that you're not bashful about where you want to be. I have no doubt that you'll be there. I'll be there with you. So
I appreciate it.
Yeah, man. So, all right. So Rob, so you get the book, securethebag.me.
Yeah, you can find
Amazon?
the book securethebag.me or on Amazon. Real easy to find.
And your website is Rob Wilson TV.
RobWilson.tv.
.tv
is my website, and I'm at Rob Wilson TV everywhere on social.
Very cool, Rob. It's fire. I appreciate it.
This has been outstanding. I'm really happy that you decided to launch this, man, and can't wait to hear the rest of your interviews.
Cool, man. Cool. It's great talking to you.
Same here.
Take care. All right, guys. We hope you loved it. Help us spread more global understanding, encouragement, and inspiration. There's 4 things you can do for us. You can comment, subscribe, like, and share. Enjoy the journey.